I worked so hard for that title.
The greatest moment of 16-year-old Clara Adams' young career taken away from her because of a celebration. After winning the 400-meter event at the CIF State Championships with a time of 53.24 seconds, her dream of winning a state title went up in flames after celebrating using a fire extinguisher.
When she blew the fire extinguisher, the opponents were gone. That was our moment of celebration. And the CIF officials made that about them. The crowd went crazy. They loved it. The booth, CIF booth went crazy. They loved it. But those few guys in those jackets, they took offense to it, didn't like it, and they made a decision based on emotions.
The North Salinas High sophomore grabbed a fire extinguisher from her father and coach and extinguished off her spikes. The CIF deemed her celebration unsportsmanlike, stripping her of her title. It's a celebration made famous by American sprint icon Maurice Green, who enjoyed her paying homage to him and thinks she should get her state title back.
When I heard, because it happened and then people just started calling me, oh, this girl who just won the 400 redid your celebration. I was like, huh, what? If it was away from everyone and not really interfering with anybody, I would say reinstate her.
One clear infraction was Clara's father hopping the railing onto the track after the race, but says he only did that because of how CIF officials were treating his daughter.
There's a CIF rule saying you can't come over the wall, you can't be on the infield, which is a rule respected. But at this point, I explained before about being a coach and a father wearing the different hats. I saw an official grab my daughter by the arm. They were yelling in her face. When he grabbed her by the arm, I went over the wall at that point. I'm father now. I'm not coach anymore. I'm over the wall.
Now, the true fastest 400-meter runner in the state is back home without a medal. And even if the CIF is to reinstate her as the champion, she never got that moment of being crowned a champion.
Even if everything goes in my favor, in regards to getting my title back, I'll still never get that moment back, standing on the podium as a sophomore. I'll never get that back because they took it from me.
Clara was also disqualified from competing in the 200-meter race because of that celebration. And we did some research, analyzed 20 years of state championships, found 0 other times where someone was disqualified and stripped of a title for unsportsmanlike conduct. We reached out to the CIF, haven't heard anything back. We also put up a poll on our Instagram, Dan, asking our viewers if they believe she should have been banned for this or not. Over 1,000 votes and counting, 87% of people saying she shouldn't have been banned for this. And the support from the community has been overwhelming so far.
And she's an immense talent, and she's only a sophomore.
Yeah, she's going to come back stronger and better than ever. They better watch out for Clara Adams.
You bet. All right. Thank you very much, Jay.
I ain't never really want to flex my kids, but I think it's my time. Let me check my wrist. You can never dim my shine. I'ma keep on grinding till I reach the top. When it's just in my jeans and I ain't looking back, cause I'm feeling like Chris, bro. They can never slow me down, but they need to hate me. Now I'm feeling like Chris. Rock with the team, cause you know that we winning, we with it, we going, we flowing again. I might just throw by a Benz. I might just blow my Benz. Whoa, I did it all for the feeling. Alive, but I'm making a killing. I'm gonna break every ceiling, cause I need a million, but I don't need your money. You can pay me in respect, cause once I do it.
Salute, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Simple Shit TV. I'm your host, Alvin Holden, also known as Project 8020. And, real quick before we get going, salute to everybody in the chat. Salute to anybody that might catch this on replay. This kind of popped into my feed recently, this thing that happened with this young lady. And it turns out that there was this young lady, sprayed off her feet after a championship win in the 400. She did a replay of Maurice Green's fire extinguisher on her feet. Now, I have to admit, they went above and beyond to punish this young lady. But at the same time, there were rules broken. There's been other times where rules were broken and people were not punished. So one could ask, how would you decide when to punish and when not to punish? A lot of times when an organization decides that they want to punish, the people that they decide that they want to punish tend to all mostly look the same. And I'll leave that there. I'm a little bit torn on this one. I'm a little bit torn. Let's just watch this real quick and then we'll move on.
I worked so hard for that title.
The greatest moment of 16-year-old Clara Adams' young career taken away from her because of a celebration. After winning the 400-meter event at the CIF State Championships with a time of 53.24 seconds, her dream of winning a state title went up in flames after celebrating using a fire extinguisher.
When she blew the fire extinguisher, the opponents were gone. That was our moment of celebration. And the CIF officials made that about them. The crowd went crazy.
Here's where I'm starting to, here's the part I'm a little bit, I don't really. So this is her father. And I believe her father was with her coach. Track and field is not like football. And even though maybe you'd want it to be like football, a lot of these sports are cracking down on celebrations. I guess one would ask a question, how do you feel about celebrations? How do you feel about NFL celebrations? Your favorite NBA player dunks on somebody. Should he be able to celebrate afterwards? You got to ask the question, right? Well, man, your favorite player, Judge, hits a home run. You know, he takes his time rounding the bases. Should he be penalized? And then how does one decide who gets penalized and who does not? Now, I like to call balls and strikes. It is what it is. Straight this, straight that for everybody. But somehow, some way, whenever we get these really big time punishments, they look a particular way. Now, as a father, helping your child break the rules or fudge the rules, some of that responsibility gets put on you. He handed a fire extinguisher to his daughter. That's not exactly something you can and should do at a high school track meet. It's against the rules. I mean, you can hand them things, but props for a celebration. Anyways, let's let him continue.
Loved it. The CF booth went crazy. They loved it. But those few guys in those jackets, they took offense to it, didn't like it, and they made a decision based on emotions.
The North Salinas High sophomore grabbed a fire extinguisher from her father and coach and extinguished off her spikes.
Oh, I don't know if he is the father and the coach, or there was the father and the coach. Maybe he is both. In which case, I don't know if you guys know much about track and field, but the coaches can't be on the field. They can't be on the track. They have to be there's a little box for them. There's a little area, or they could be right at the edge, but they can't be down on the field. And I'm not sure that the coaches and the officials would like you handing them things, but let's continue.
The CIF deemed her celebration unsportsmanlike, stripping her of her title. It's a celebration made famous by American sprint icon Maurice Green, who enjoyed her paying homage to him and thinks she should get her state title back.
When I heard, because it happened, and then people just started calling me, oh, this girl who just won the 400 redid your celebration. I was like, huh, what? If it was away from everyone and not really interfering with anybody, I would say reinstate her.
One clear and
it was at the pits of like the long jump or triple jump. So there was people around.
Fraction was Clara's father.
It was better than spraying it on the track, in my honest opinion. But Let's continue.
Hopping the railing onto the track after the race, but says he only did that because of how CIF officials were treating his daughter.
There's a CIF rule saying you can't come over the wall. You can't be on the infield, which is
Yes, there's a rule. This is what I'm saying. There's a rule.
the rule respected.
Not if you jump over, you're breaking the rule.
At this point, I explained before about being a coach and a father wearing the different hats. I saw an official grab my daughter by the arm. They were yelling in her face. When he grabbed her by the arm, I went over the wall at that point.
You know what? Oh.
The arm,
Yeah.
they were yelling in her face. When he grabbed her by the arm, I went over the wall at that point. I'm father now. I'm not coach anymore. I'm over the wall.
Now,
Another rule broken.
the true fastest 400-meter runner in the state is back home without a medal. And even if the CIF is to reinstate her as the champion, she never got that moment of being crowned a champion.
Even if everything goes in my favor, in regards to like getting my title back,
I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't know how I feel with this one. The problem is she broke the rules. That's the number one rule. She broke the rules. The thing is that other people have broken rules before. They just never got penalized. And that's the issue. Anyways, salute to this young lady. Look, guys, we're going to get right into the nitty gritty. Broken Blade is having some technical difficulties, so he may or may not pop in. We're going to talk about AI real quick. Shout out to the All In podcast. I don't know if you guys peeped the All In podcast. David Sachs, Chamath, I forget his last name, how to say his last name. J Cal, something or other. Anyways, everybody is in this death roll with about AI and such. I have my own concerns, but before I start to judge, I'd like to hear what people are saying. If I'm not mistaken, David Sachs is the AI czar, so he's the most informed, and he's probably going to give us at least what the Trump administration wants us to hear as far as AI is concerned. This is his platform. And so I figure if we were going to get some AI information, at least from our own government, this is probably straight from the horse's mouth. Now, whether this horse is lying to us or not, we'll be able to judge, but we'll at least get a chance to hear what they have to say. Let's get it popping. Fair use.
Just because it seems like there is.
Oh, hold on. Let me slow this down for us here. And let's rock.
More at work than just a couple of technologists with, I think we'd all agree, there are legitimate concerns about job destruction or job and employment displacement that could occur with AI. We all agree on that. We're seeing robo-taxis start to hit the streets. And I don't think anybody believes that being a cab driver is going to exist as a job 10 years from now. So there seems to be something here about AI doomerism, but it's being taken to a different level by a group of people, maybe with a different agenda. Yeah.
Well, first of all, let's just acknowledge that there are concerns and risks associated with AI. It is a profound and transformative technology. And there are legitimate concerns about where it might lead. I mean, the future is unknown, and that can be kind of scary. Now, that being said, I think that when somebody makes a pronouncement that says something like 50% of white collar jobs are going to be lost within 2 years, that's a level of specificity that I think is just unknowable and is more associated with an attempt to grab headlines. And to be frank, if you go back and look at Anthropic's announcement or Dario's announcement, there is a pattern of trying to grab headlines by making the most sensationalist version of what could be a legitimate concern. If you go back 3 years ago, they created this concern that AI models could be used to create bioweapons. And they showed what was supposedly a sample, I think, of Claude generating an output that could be used by a bioterrorist or something like that.
They can absolutely do those things. They absolutely can. And I believe they already are.
That. And on the basis of that, it actually got a lot of play. And in the UK, Rishi Sunak got very interested in this cause, and that led to the first AI safety summit at Bletchley Park. So that sort of concern really drove some of the initial AI safety concerns, but it turns out that that particular output was discredited. It wasn't true. I'm not saying that AI couldn't be used or misused to maybe create a bioweapon one day, but it was not an imminent threat in the way that it was portrayed. There have been
So it didn't really happen. It just could have happened, but it didn't happen, allegedly.
other examples of this. Obviously people are concerned about, could the AI develop into superintelligence that grows beyond our control? Could it lead to widespread job loss? I mean, these are legitimate things to worry about, but I think these concerns are being hyped up to a level that there's simply no evidence for. And the question is why? And I think that there is an agenda here that people should be concerned about.
I agree. I think that the people that are making the most noise about this AI situation stand to either benefit, they're either trying to stall things out or trying to find some other way to benefit, if I had to guess.
So let's start with maybe Freeberg. Things that we all agree on here. There are millions of people who drive trucks and Ubers and Lyfts and DoorDashes. You would, I think, agree the majority of that work in but 5 to 10 years, just to put a number on it, will be done by self-driving robots, cars, etc. Trucks.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's go back to what he said a second ago.
On here, there are millions of people who drive trucks and
Ubers
and Lyfts and DoorDash.
Ubers and Lyfts. Okay, got you. So all of the service stuff. Okay. There's been while I've been doing a little bit of itty bitty teeny weeny research about this, and listening to these guys speak, there tends to be a disconnection between the type of work that people do, people want to do, and then the work that people have to do. And I think they keep talking about these jobs as if people are going to go from an Uber to an office job because of AI, like that's a possibility. And I don't really see that, but maybe I'm off.
Dashes. You would, I think, agree the majority of that work in but 5 to 10 years, just to put a number on it, will be done by self-driving robots, cars, etc. Trucks. Yeah, Dave?
I think that might be the wrong way to look at it, or I wouldn't look at it that way. And maybe I'll just frame it a different way.
Please.
If I'm deploying capital, let's say I'm a CEO of a company and I can now have software that's written by AI, does that mean that I'm going to fire 80% of my software engineers? Basically, it means one software engineer can output, call it 20, 50 times as much software as they previously could by using that software generation tool. So the return on the invested capital, the money I'm spending to pay the salary of that software engineer, is now much, much higher. I'm getting much more out of that person because of the unlocking of the productivity because of the AI tool.
So he's talking about productivity of an engineer. How many engineers are there, though? There's not that many engineers. In fact, the largest sector in the economy, or the largest sector is services. People doing stuff. If I'm not mistaken, let me check my earlier search. Somewhere in the realm of, I'll probably close the window, 13 million or 27 million. 27 million Americans are in services. I think there's another 9 in like manufacturing, building stuff. He's referencing private enterprise and sales. Those people might be out of a job. Services, delivery, I don't know. These cars in San Francisco are driving themselves already, though. Let's continue.
than I previously could. So when you have a higher ROI on deployed capital, do you deploy more capital or less capital? Suddenly you have this opportunity to make 20 times on your money versus 2 times on your money. If you have a chance to make 20 times on your money, you're going to deploy a lot more capital. And this is the story of technology going back to the first invention of the first technology of the caveman. When we have this ability to create leverage, humans have a tendency to do more and invest more, not less. And I think that's what's about to happen.
I'm not sure I think that's true. I don't believe that's true. Now, I've been fortunate enough to get a chance to watch this already, and I think a place where David Sachs ends up being ultimately what I is the thing that overrides what he's saying right now. But let's let him continue to rock, because I think this is a very limited perspective to have. Let's continue.
I think we see this across the spectrum. People assumed, oh my gosh, software can now be written with one person. You can create a whole startup. You don't need to have venture capital anymore. In fact, what I think we're going to see is much more venture capital flowing into new tech startups, much more capital being deployed because the return.
That's kind of what I was thinking about. New tech startups. New tech startups. What does that really mean? Right? Like, what are these tech companies actually doing? Right? It's just apps for some sort of a service, whatever that service happens to be. So we've already got our, obviously you got your Googles and your YouTubes and your Yahoos and so on. Those are search engines, and those are areas for you to be able to get into selling you things, and there's going to be ads sold to you on those things and so on and so forth. And then you say, okay, well, what other apps make my life easier? Or what other things do I do? He mentions a lot of delivery food and delivering packages, but what other jobs could you really be talking about realistically? Writers, you're screwed. If you're an artist, I mean, you should probably be at the cutting edge of this thing. Healthcare, at the end of the day, most likely you will need a human being doing some hand-to-hand combat. Those people are probably a little bit more safe. Salute to No News. What's going on? Yo, if I'm not talking about smut, then people don't want to hear it. Salute to you, bro. Let's let these guys rock a little more.
On the invested capital is so much higher because of AI. So generally speaking, I think that the premise that AI destroys jobs is wrong because it doesn't take into account the significantly higher return on invested capital, which means more capital is going to be deployed, which means actually far more jobs are going to be created, far more work is going to get done. And so I think that the counterbalancing effect is really hard to see without taking that zoomed out perspective. To respond to Sachs's point, I do think anytime you see a major change socially, societally, there's a vacuum. How's the system going to operate in the future? And anytime there's a vacuum in the system, a bunch of people will rush in and say, I know how to fill that vacuum. I know what to do because I am smarter, more educated, more experienced, more knowledgeable, more moral. I have some superiority over everyone else. And therefore, I should be in a position to define how the new system should operate. And so there's a natural kind of power vacuum that emerges anytime there's a major transition like this. And there will be a scrambling and a fighting and a whole bunch of different representation. Typically, fear is a great way of getting into power.
It's an interesting point. He's soft shoeing around the obvious part of it because typically what he's dancing around is that on some level there will be some exploitation happening. The question becomes, are you going to be on this side of the exploitation or are you going to be on the other side of the exploitation? But he just doesn't want to come right out and say it. That is my impression.
And people are going.
And also shout out to No News. He said, I'm glad I switched from being a graphic designer to an electrician. You got to wire it. At the end of the day, somebody's got to do the wiring. Somebody's got to put the thing in the thing. They got to build the thing. I think you're better off trying to build a thing than, people better figure out how to make AI work for them. Man. And here's the thing about it, No News. Because what it's doing is, as of right now, AI is a glorified search engine now that still has pre-programmed responses, pre-programmed thought processes, and still is limited to the amount of data that you give it. So, for example, AI, if you say, hey, if you could ask AI a question about you and say it doesn't know you from a can of paint, all it can do is just look at you, look at your physical attributes and make judgments on that. And if you say, hey, do you like fish or whatever, AI wouldn't have any kind of idea. However, if you plug AI into your email and into your phone and into your TV, smart TV that you have in your house, and and Siri and whatever device you might have in your bedroom, and it's listening to you take showers, and it's listening to your conversations, and it knows what time you go to work, and it knows what you do on the weekends. And then you ask that same AI bot about that very same question about what you like to eat, and it'll have a much better idea as to what it is that you might want to eat. However much information you give it's going to be able to dictate. And I think that area is a lot more insidious than we want to admit also, or at least they want to admit. I think that these cameras and microphones are working a lot more often than they want to admit. And I believe that they are giving these AI bots a lot more information than you would be comfortable with. If I had to guess, let's continue.
We're going to try and create new control systems because of the transition that's underway.
Okay,
You're going to see this around the world.
Yeah. I mean, so Chamath, it's pretty clear.
I just wanted to get to this point here, Chamath.
Freeberg didn't answer this question specifically, so I'm going to give it to you again. You would agree jobs like driving things are going to go away. If we had to pick a number, somewhere between 5 and 10 years, the majority of those would go away. He's positioning, hey, a lot more jobs will be created because there'll be all these extra venture capital and opportunities, et cetera. But job displacement will be very real. And we're seeing, I think, job displacement now. You had a tweet recently, you were talking about entry-level jobs and how that seems to be going away in the white-collar space. So where do you land on job displacement? Freeberg's already kind of given the big picture here, but let's step back to, for people who are listening, who have relatives who drive Uber or a truck or are graduating from college and want to go work at the Magnificent Seven or in tech, and they're not hiring. And we know the reason they're not hiring, because they're leaning into AI. So let's talk about the job displacement in the medium term.
I'm going to ignore your question. And
Great.
I'm going to answer.
Why should you be any different than the other malcontents on this podcast? There's two people not wanting to answer the question about job displacement. Interesting trend.
No, we'll go back to that. Let me start by just saying that it seems that these safety warnings tend to be pretty coincidental with key fundraising moments in Anthropic's journey. So let's just start with that. And if you put that into an LLM and try to figure out if what I just said was true, it's interesting, but you find it's relatively accurate. I think that there is a very smart business strategy here. And I've said a version of this about the other companies at the foundational model layer that aren't Meta and Google, because Meta and Google, frankly, sit on these money gushers where they just generate so much capital that they can fund these things to infinity. But if you're not them, so if you're OpenAI or if you're Anthropic, you have to find an angle. And I think the angles are slightly different for both. But I think what this suggests is that there's a pattern that exists. And I think that explains some of the framing of what we see in the press, Jason.
If anybody catches this on a replay, that's an important thing that he just said. You have to find an angle. That is important. If you take nothing from anything that is said on this broadcast or what these guys are talking about, you have to find an angle.
And why we get these exaggerated claims.
Perfect. So there are people who are doing this for nefarious reasons, is I guess where you're sort of getting at here. It's a way to
it's not
pump up the
nefarious
market.
at all. It's smart. It's smart.
Okay,
If you fall for it, it's up to
you. Smart or nefarious? It seems like it's got to be one or the other. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's also an industrial complex, according to some folks, that are backing this. If you've heard of effective altruism, that was like this movement of a bunch of, I don't know, I guess they consider themselves intellectual sacks. And they were kind of backing a large swath of organizations that I guess we would call in the industry astroturfing, or what do they call it when you make so many of these organizations that they're not real in politics, and flooding the zone, perhaps?
Now, this is important. And the reason why I say it's important is because now that we know how the media works a little bit, and we see how subjects are getting force fed or pushed into our feeds and driving a particular narrative, they kind of tell on themselves. So if you just sit back and watch or zoom out or look at the whole situation from 40,000 feet and you look at who's sending these messages or pumping these narratives into the media, then it'll probably let you know on what side you need to be on. But check this part out. This is important.
So if you were to look at this article here, Nick, I think you have the AI existential risk.
I'm going to go on ahead and slide myself over here. Let's check this out.
Industrial complex graphic there. It seems like a group of people, according to this article, have backed to the tune of 1.6 billion, a large number of organizations to scare the bejesus out of everybody and make one of 1.6 graphic there.
Much?
It seems like a group of people, according to this article, have backed to the tune of 1.6 billion.
1.6 billion to tell us that AI existential risk industrial complex. So like it lets us, these people want us to know that AI is an existential risk. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm simply just all we're doing is getting a little bit of information. That's all. That's it.
A large number of organizations to scare the bejesus out of everybody and make YouTube videos, TikToks, and they've made a map of it.
There's some key takeaways here from that article where it says here that it's an inflated ecosystem. There's a great deal of redundancy, same names, acronyms,
Great deal of redundancy, same names and acronyms, logos with minor changes, extreme talking points, same group of people just with different titles, same funding source, primarily open philanthropy, clearly not grassroots, bottom-up movement, well-orchestrated top-down movement. Interesting.
logos with only minor changes, same extreme talking points, same group of people just with different titles, same funding source. There's a funding source called Open Philanthropy, which was funded by Dustin Moskovitz, who is one of the Facebook billionaires. Shamath, you worked with him, right? I mean, wasn't he like Zuck's roommate at Harvard or something? And one of the first engineers, made a lot of money.
Interesting. And that's relevant. That's a relevant fact.
So he funded this, he's an EA, and he funded this group called Open Philanthropy, which then has become the feeder for essentially all of these other organizations, which are almost different fronts to basically the same underlying EA ideology. And what's interesting is that the guy who set this up for Dustin, Holden Karnofsky, who is a major effective altruist and was doling out all the money, he's married to Dario's sister. And she's, I guess, associated with EA, and she was one of the co-founders of Anthropic. So these are not coincidences. I mean, the reality is there's a very specific ideological and political agenda here. Now, what is that agenda? It's basically global AI governance, if you will. They want AI to be highly regulated, but not just at the level of the nation state, but let's say internationally, supranationally.
To what end?
Well, if you just do a quick search on global compute governance, it'll tell you what the key aspects are. So number one, they want regulation of computational resources. This includes access to GPUs. They want AI safety and security regulation. They want international, you call them globalist agreements. And they want ethical and societal considerations or policy built into this. Now, what does that sound like? That sounds a lot to me like what the Biden administration was pursuing. Specifically, we had that Biden executive order on AI, which was 100 pages of burdensome regulation that was designed to promote AI safety, but had all these DEI requirements. So, it led to woke AI. You remember when Google launched Black George Washington and so forth. They had the Biden diffusion rule, which created this global licensing framework to sell GPUs all over the world. So extreme restrictions on proliferation of servers, of computing power. They created what's called the AI Safety Institute. And they, again, fostered these international AI summits. So if you actually look at what the Biden administration was tangibly doing in terms of policy, and you look at what EA's agenda is with respect to global compute governance, they were pushing hard on these fronts. And now, if you look at the level of personnel, there were very, very powerful Biden staffers who now all work at Anthropic. So probably the most powerful Biden staffer on AI over the past 4 years was a lawyer named Tarun Chhabra.
I think it's very
he now
interesting
works at Anthropic for Dario. Elizabeth Kelly, who was the founding director of the AI Safety Institute in the government, now works at Anthropic. Like I mentioned, Dario's sister is married to Holden Karnofsky, who doles out all the money to these EA organizations. So if you were to do something like create a network map, you would see very quickly that there's three key nodes here. There's the effective altruist movement, of which Sam Bankman-Fried's the most notable member, but which I think Dustin Moskovitz is now the main funder. There's a Biden administration and like the key staffers, and then you've got Anthropic. And it's a very tightly wound network. Now, why does this
Well,
matter?
let's get because also the goals, I think, is
yes. Well, the goal, like I said, is global compute governance. It's basically establishing national and then international regulations of AI. Now,
but they would claim. Let's just pause here for a minute. They would claim the reason they're doing it, and so we'll say if we believe this.
And this is important, right? Because like these people are masters of saying two things at the same time, or saying one thing but meaning another, but leaving plausible deniability for that other thing. Let's continue.
Or not, but they are concerned about job destruction in the short term. They're also concerned, as science fiction as it is,
job destruction so they want you to keep your crappy job because they're not doing anything to make better jobs. They just want things to stay the way that they are. Okay.
That the AI, when we get to like a sort of generalized superintelligence, is going to kill humanity. That this is a non-zero chance. Elon has said this before. They've sort of taken it to almost like a certainty.
Yes.
We're going to have so many of these general intelligences.
That they only believe that when they're raising money?
And that's a very good that's a very good question, Chamath. Let's ask it again.
Yes.
We're going to have so many of these general intelligences.
That they only believe that when they're raising money?
Well, that's what I'm sort of getting at. Like, so
I think they believe it all the time, but maybe the press releases are time for the fundraisers.
But yet they're building.
But let me answer
really
that.
Great product,
Jacob,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean,
it is a great product. Claude kicks ass.
I'm more interested in the political dimension of this. I'm not bashing a specific product or company, but look, I think that there is some non-zero risk of AI growing into a superintelligence that's beyond our control. They have a name.
How concerned? He doesn't seem that concerned, but it would be a concerning thing if AI could, get loose and not make it so that you couldn't turn it off, and it was manipulating the human population without your knowing. That's concerning to me, but before we get into all of that, or we let him go on that, he mentions us and kind of talks about China, and I think that this is a little bit more important. Let's move to here. Let's let him rock.
But right now, it's an exceptionally good autocomplete.
Yeah, and I just think that again, it's a tried and true tactic of people who want to give immeasurably more power to the government to try and make people afraid, and they stampede people into these policies, right? And they give them power, exactly. Now, why do I think this is important to talk about? On last week's show, I talked about the trip to the Middle East and how we started doing.
This is what I was trying to get to.
These AI acceleration partnerships with the Gulf states who have a lot of resources, a lot of money, and they're intensely interested in AI. And the Biden administration was pushing them away. It basically said, you can't have the chips, you can't build data centers. And it was pushing them into the arms of China. The thing that I thought was so bizarre is that the various groups and organizations and former Biden staffers who wrote this policy have been agitating in Washington, and they've been trying to portray themselves as China hawks. And I'm like, wait, this doesn't make any sense, because this policy, again, there's basically two camps in this new Cold War. It's US versus China. You can pull the Gulf states into our orbit, or you can drive them into China's orbit. So this to me just didn't make any sense. And what's happened is that, frankly, you've got this EA ideology that's really motivating things, which is a desire to lock down compute, right? They're afraid of proliferation. They're afraid of diffusion.
I think it's a little bit bigger than that, personally. In my honest opinion, I think that the more the more AI gets out and the more information gets out, I think that there's other things out there. There's information or data that people are trying to hide, meaning crimes committed, money stolen, money missing, relationships that people don't want to talk about openly. I think AI is going to make it a lot harder to hide those things. I think that AI is going to make it easier for people to do science and invent things and disrupt markets. And I think that's what they're fighting about. And I think that when people find out what these other people have been doing, these folks won't have power for too much longer. So what in my honest opinion, what I'm hypothesizing is that people realize that the toothpaste is out of the tube, and they can only get away with what they've been getting away with for a little bit longer before everything clamps down. So I think they're trying to clamp down the information ahead of time. Facts. Pre-crime? Absolutely. They're trying not to say that they're doing it, but they are absolutely starting to implement pre-crime. Your street cameras, the cameras, CCTVs are tracking you. They're following you around. we're like a hop, skip, and a jump away from it. Let's continue.
That's really their motivation. And they're trying to rebrand themselves as China hawks because they know that in the Trump administration, that idea is just not going to get much purchase, right?
And your position as czar is a level playing field. People compete, and the good guys, the West, should be supported to hit artificial general intelligence as fast as possible. So the bad guys, China, don't get it first. That's a
good guy, bad guy. China, bad guy. You guys agree with China being bad guy? I'm not saying anything either way. I'm just curious. I'm just trying to follow along this whole AI thing.
Well,
open competition.
I don't know if I would frame it around agent.
Open competition. And let's just be real. China doesn't play fair. Like, they don't play by the rules. Their government controls everything. There's not even some sort of, it's corrupt, just like America's corrupt. It's just their government that's doing it. Instead of, sometimes it's our government, sometimes it's our CIA, sometimes it's the FBI, sometimes it's just rich people that, got money.
GI specifically. But what I would say is that, look, I think our policy should be to win the AI race, because the alternative is that China wins it, and that would be very bad for our economy and our military. How do you win the AI race? You got to out innovate. You got to have innovation. That means we can't have overregulation and red tape. We got to build out the most AI infrastructure, data centers, energy, which includes our partners. And then third, I think it means AI diplomacy, because we want to build out the biggest ecosystem. We know that biggest app store wins, biggest ecosystem wins, right?
That means you get to set the rules. You get to set the rules. That's what he's saying. He said, power, we got to get there first, because we get to set the rules. If China gets there first, they get to make the rules. If we get there first, we get to make the rules. Now, he said something interesting here. He said, innovation is dead in America. Too many people standing in the way. Too many people standing in the way. That's interesting. Innovation is dead. You think so? I don't know, bro. I think we're going through a renaissance, believe it or not. I know this doesn't sound crazy. I know this is going to sound crazy. If you'll allow me 2 seconds. So, physics has been at pretty much a standstill for a very long time. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but if you start doing physics, nuclear physics, it bings on the internet and FBI people come knocking at your door. That kind of science is top secret. You can't even talk about it for real. Physics has very much been stopped and kind of stagnant for a really long time now. So it's kind of held steady. Well, AI has opened a couple of more doors. COVID gave some people that had some, bullshit jobs, opportunities to do stuff they really like to do. You have a lot of self-taught individuals that are popping up. They're challenging the status quo, right? Like, guys, for the most part, we thought that the pyramids were tombs up until about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, when people got in there and were like, this is not a tomb. And I don't know how the hell they even built this thing. People started questioning it, right? Technology got good enough for us to realize what we didn't know. Technology got good enough to where now they bring a laser camera inside the inside the pyramid. They scan the inside and they say, does anybody think it's weird that this floor is dead flat all the way across? There's no chinks, there's no this, there's no that, it's dead flat. Does anybody else think it's weird that this granite corner that they cut in here is a perfect 90 degrees and it's polished? I can still see my face in it, and it's 10,000 plus years old. Anybody else think that that's weird? Now that we have the technology, we know what some of this stuff is. We understand how weird it is, or how special it is. And I think now that we're starting to get the tech, and then you add the processing power and slap AI on the top of it, I think maybe we might be in a little bit of the beginning stages of a new renaissance. And I really think that people see the writing on the wall, and they're trying to get as much resources and put as many rules on it as they possibly can to keep control. That's what I think is happening. But he said, we used to be the leaders in innovation. Everybody learned from us. You know what? No news. I would have agreed 110% with you. And then I read about Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip. We'll talk about it. Not today, but Operation Paperclip.
And the policies under the Biden administration were doing the opposite of all those things. But again, you have to go back to what was driving that. And it was not driven by this China hawk mentality. That is now a convenient rebranding. It was driven by this EA ideology, this doomerism. And so this is what I'm talking about, is I want to expose it because I think a lot of people on the Republican side don't realize where the ideology is really coming from and who's funding it. They're obviously Trump haters, and they need to be lumered, quite frankly.
They need to be lumered. He did a funny. Look, watch.
They're obviously Trump haters, and they need to be lumered, quite frankly.
And he said, yeah, I forgot about Operation Paperclip. No, well, here's the thing. It's right about that. That was a time when we developed the big thing that goes boom. And we went over there and got all those German, there's a German scientists, and we brought them over and threw them in the United States and mixed them up with everybody else. And those people are still up in here. So you weren't wrong when you said that we used to innovate. It just wasn't just us, is what I was getting at. You weren't wrong. I'm just saying we were innovating in a different kind of way. Now that was nefarious. If you were to use the word nefarious, that would be a time where you would use the word nefarious. So that's the whole thing with China. And then this guy Freeberg's an idiot. I mean, I'm sorry, that's mean. That's not a nice thing to say. I don't really like him very much. And I want to talk about a couple of points that he's making here. This guy.
Availability of products, cost of goods, access to things. So the counterbalancing force, J. Cal, is deflationary, which is, let's assume that the cost of everything comes down by half. That's a huge relief on people's need to work 60 hours a week. Suddenly you only need to work 30 hours a week.
Okay, this guy's logic is trash. Hold on, let's go back again. Let's go back. Because I think this person's idea of how the world works or how the United States work is very flawed. Very, very, very flawed. Let's get the question in and let him go. Because this is we can move off of this after this, but this to me demonstrates how disconnected from reality these guys can be sometimes.
Driving to be done. So is this time different in terms of the velocity of the change and the job displacement in your mind, Freeberg?
The velocity is greater, but the benefit will be faster. So the benefit of the Industrial Revolution, which ultimately drove lower priced products and broader availability of products through manufacturing.
Okay. So Industrial Revolution benefit was to get products to us. So to sell us stuff, and to sell us stuff cheaper. That's how I'm understanding this. Hey, look, if I'm off, tell me.
In your mind, Freeberg.
The velocity is greater, but the benefit will be faster. So the benefit of the Industrial Revolution, which ultimately drove lower priced products and broader availability of products through manufacturing, was one of the key outputs of that revolution, meaning that we created a consumer market that largely didn't exist prior. Remember, prior to the Industrial Revolution, if you wanted to buy a table or some clothes, they were handmade, they were kind of artisanal. Suddenly, the Industrial Revolution unlocked the ability to mass produce things in factories.
Are we collectively agreeing that mass producing stuff is better? Can I ask that question? Should things be made by hand? I don't know. We're sitting here on cameras talking on microphones. We've got technology. So, what's happened has happened, but do we think that made things better or worse for us? Just something to think about.
And that dropped the cost and the availability and the abundance of things that everyone wanted to have access to, but they otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford. So suddenly everyone could go and buy blankets and clothes and canned food and all of these incredible things that started to come out of this Industrial Revolution that happened at the time. And I think that folks are underestimating and under-realizing the benefits at this stage of what's going to come out of the AI revolution and how it's ultimately going to benefit people's availability of products, cost of goods, access to things.
Okay. Now, here's my thing. Here's my issue with this. Industrial Revolution, manufacturing things, you're making things. And since you're mass producing things, then things can get produced and the cost of them comes down. And I can make money by making those things so I can afford those physical things that I'm making, those physical things. But we're coming into a place now where people aren't making anything anymore and it's digital. So are we making digital products and are we working to afford digital products? And are we going to make more money by creating and consuming digital products? And we're just going to and keep the cost or the value of it high enough and still get paid high enough, right? Because what ended up happening to the Industrial Revolution, right? We exported all the jobs. So we exported all the jobs because the labor was cheaper somewhere else. Okay, so now we don't make stuff anymore. Now the stuff that we make is digital. Like we sit here, like right now, like what I'm doing right now, I am digitally sharecropping right now. Like right now, I'm digitally sharecropping. Google is taking, or YouTube is taking their 30%. I'm keeping you guys' attention. I'm sucking up megabytes and terabytes just for your learning or entertainment enjoyment. That's what we're doing right now. So is this it, the digital sharecropping? Is this what we're doing? Like, are people going to make it their life to do this kind of stuff, or to code, or to play video games, or to entertain? Is that what I'm looking at? Because that's I'm looking at this problem as like that's the next thing over the hill. He's describing it as something else.
So the counterbalancing force, Jake, is deflationary, which is let's assume that the cost of everything comes down by half. That's a huge relief on people's need to work 60 hours a week.
Hold on. First of all, he's about to spew some bullshit, so we're going to do it all at one time. But thank you so much for saying this. No mention of World War II contributions. Exactly. Because we had to get the war machine up. That was what pushed and drove innovation. I'm so glad you also said that. No news. Because think about this for a second. What's happening in the Middle East and over in Russia right now, in Europe right now? What's happening right now in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East? Some might say that it's the same plan. It's the same game plan. I think you could make that argument that it's not this. It's the same gameplay. It's the same damn thing, just a different time with a different name, but it's the same damn thing. Let's let this guy rock.
It's deflationary, which is let's assume that the cost of everything comes down by half. That's a huge relief on people's need.
Cost of what though? Cost of like my Adobe? They just raised the prices. Cost of what? Your upgrade on your Twitter? That went up. Cost of my other software, my YouTube Premium, that went up. Health insurance went up. Dental insurance went up. I'm not seeing how AI is going to make that stuff cheaper. I just don't see it. So I hear what he's saying, but they're still charging all of this money for this for services. Like all we're doing is we're playing on our devices and trading data back and forth. That's it. Let's go.
To work 60 hours a week. Suddenly you only need to work 30 hours a week.
Yo, Adobe's got one more month out of me, player. I'm already researching. It's about to get replaced. I got one more. I just can't take it. I just can't take it. I use the whole creative suite, and it's nice to have, but they're getting me. Let's go.
And you can have the same lifestyle or perhaps even a better lifestyle than you have today. So the counter argument to your point, and I'll talk about the pace of change in specific jobs in a moment, but the counter argument to your point is that there's going to be this cost reduction and abundance that doesn't exist today.
Give an example.
Cost reduction and abundance. Give an example.
Give like some examples that we could see.
Automation in food prep. So we're seeing a lot of restaurants install robotic systems to make food.
And that's better. So robots making our food is going to make the food cheaper is what he's trying to say. All right, please make the case. I don't know if I agree, but I'm willing to listen. Let's hear. Make the case.
And people are like, oh, job loss, job loss. But let me just give
job loss.
you the counter side. The counter side is that the cost of your food drops in half. So suddenly,
is that a realistic statement? Is that a fair statement? That your food is going to get cut in half, like your food costs. When has our food costs ever been cut in half? Just think about it for a second. When has your Big Mac been half price? 20-piece chicken nugget. When was it half price? When did you go into McDonald's and you expect to pay $8 and they say, here's your 20-piece nugget for $4? When has that ever happened? Large fry, you expect to pay $5 and they say, no, it's only $2.50. Here's your change. When has that ever happened? Please tell me. When has that ever happened? So this dude just sits here. This is the part that agitated me. This guy just sits here and he says that and nobody pushes back. But I'm looking at him and I'm like, when has food ever been, oh, your food is going to get half as cheap, half as expensive? When? Like when? When has that ever happened? That has never happened. That will never happen. But he's sitting there with a straight face making an excuse like it's something. Now, I could have found a different example. I mean, I just think he needs a better example. That's just a terrible example, in my honest opinion. That to me means that you're making this argument in bad faith or you're ignorant. To me, like you're either lying or I don't know.
All the labor costs that's built into making the stuff you want to pick up. Everyone.
No News says we are so off robotics picking and planning food. Machines cost money. Yeah, right now. I mean, so here's what's got to happen, right? If a machine, CNC machines, if you put something in a CNC machine, you put the block down, what it does is it has feelers so it knows what something is in space. And you let it know what that thing is. And once it knows where that piece of aluminum or whatever it's cutting, once it knows where that is in space, then it runs a preset plan and it does whatever it's supposed to do. And you can preset what tools you want to put in that CNC machine and what angles and whatever, and the machine can do it. But it needs for you to make sure that you put that block of metal in that place, you lock it down so it can't move, and then you inform the machine where that block is. It doesn't have any cameras to know. The next step is that now these machines will have cameras and they'll be able to look and know exactly where something is. This is where AI comes in. Now you can take a picture of something. It recognizes whatever you take a picture of, and then the information goes from there. Well, now, if the machine can recognize things digitally, the next step is recognizing things in space. Once it can recognize things in space, and then the next step from that is it being able to manipulate that thing. Once it can recognize something in space and then it has the ability to manipulate it, that's when we're fucked. That's when we're fucked. Because right now the machine it takes everything. It can't just go and pick up apple because it can't recognize what the apple is. It can't recognize the apple from the leaf, from the branch. But the second that machine can go down a row and look up into a tree, a camera can look up into a tree and it can recognize that is a ripe apple, and then it has an arm that can pop up and grab that apple, that's when we're fucked. That's the moment when we're screwed. No News said 35-cent cheeseburgers and 29-cent hamburgers at McDonald's in the 90s was the only time. Yeah, we ain't going to see that again. We're never going to see that again. And I'd be anxious to know if the buns and the meat stayed the same size throughout that. But you could be right. That might be the only time. That might be the only time. Let's let this guy rock.
Everyone's freaking out right now about inflation. Oh my God, it's $8 for a cup of coffee. It's $8 for a latte. This is crazy, crazy, crazy. What if that dropped down to $2?
Do you guys believe that if Starbucks could figure out how to serve you your coffee without another person and not piss off society and not piss off any unions or whatever, and Starbucks could serve you that very same cup of coffee that you just paid $6 for, but since there's not a human being there anymore, do you think Starbucks would lower that price of that coffee to $2? Come on, man. Come on, bro.
You're going to be like, man, this is pretty awesome with good service and good experience, and don't make it all dystopian. But suddenly there's going to be this like incredible reduction or deflationary effect in the cost of food. And
that's bullshit. I'm kind of annoyed that nobody pushed back on him for this.
We're already starting to see automation play its way in the food system to bring inflation down. And that's going to be very powerful for people.
Shout out to Eats at Cloud Kitchens and Cafe X. We all took swings at the bat at that exact concept, is that it could be done better, cheaper, faster.
One of the amazing things of these vision action models that are now being employed is you can rapidly learn using vision systems and then deploy automation systems in those sorts of environments where you have a lot of kind of repetitive tasks, that the system can be trained and installed in a matter of weeks. And historically, that would have been a whole startup that would have taken years to figure out how to get all these things together and custom program it, custom code it. So the flip side is like,
they would not lower the cost of food.
Like when Uber hit, those people were not drivers. Think about the job.
Now, this is some shenanigans also. This guy's kind of an asshole. Anyways, let's let him rock, because
custom program it, custom code it. So the flip side is like when Uber hit, those people were not drivers. Think about the jobs that all those people had prior to Uber coming to market. And then the reason they drove for Uber is they could make more money driving for Uber.
No, they lost their job, man. They lost their job during COVID. They lost their job because there was the economy was bad. They lost their job, and the only thing they could do was drive the car that they had and give people rides and deliver food to make a living, to make ends meet. That's what it was. They didn't just decide, you know what, I could just make more money doing Uber. Like how detached from reality is this guy for real? Like for real. Like how detached for real? Let's let him rock.
Now driving for the flexibility or DoorDash and the flexibility. So their lifestyle got
who like these guys. They don't want to do that bullshit. Who wants to do Uber Eats? Who wants to do Uber Eats? You'd be like, oh, I could totally make. I'm killing it right now delivering Uber Eats because that's exactly what I'd like to be doing right now with my life. I'm doing this job because I want to. This is a lucrative gig I got here.
Got better. They had all of this more control in their life. Their incomes went up. And so there's a series
interesting
of things that you are correct won't make sense in the future from a kind of standard of work perspective. But the right way to think about it is opportunity gets created. New jobs emerge, new industry, new income, costs go down. And so I keep harping on this, that it's really hard today to be very prescriptive, to Sachs's point, about what exactly is around the corner. But it is an almost certainty that what is around the corner is more capital will be deployed. That means the economy grows. That means there's a faster deployment of growth of new jobs, new opportunities for people to make more money, to be happier in the work that they do. And the flip side being things are going to get cheaper. So okay.
I just don't believe that. I just think that that's some bullshit, especially the example that he used for food. Software will get cheaper, maybe. Some of the things that AI is doing right now that you have to pay for services will probably become standard. So
we're waxing philosophical here, but I think it's really key because you can focus on the one side of the coin and miss the whole other. And that's what a lot of journalists and commentators and fear-mongers do, is they miss that other side.
Got it.
And again, I'm not fear-mongering. I'm just saying that the examples that you used are stupid. Like the examples that he used are not realistic. So if that's the example that we're going by, then the doom and gloom people were absolutely correct. You need a better reason, a better excuse as to how this is going to work for the positive and not the negative, because we don't produce anything. And basically what's happening is they're farming our data. Like that's the business right now. Farming your data. Getting you to buy stuff. and farming your data. That's what the business is. Not making food, not healthcare, not driving trucks. It's keeping you in front of your device.
Well said, Freeberg. Well said.
I think I've heard Satya turn this question around about job loss, saying, well, do you believe that?
And I'm not saying there will be. I'm just saying that, once again, the example that he used is terrible. Like, food's not going to get cheaper.
GDP is going to grow by 10% a year. Because what are we talking about here? In order to have the kind of disruption that you're talking about, where, I don't know, 10 to 20% of knowledge workers end up losing their jobs, AI is going to have to be such a profound force that it's going to have to create GDP growth like we've never seen before.
That's right.
So it's easier for people to say, oh, well, 20% of people are going to lose their jobs. But wait, we're talking about a world where the economy is growing 10% every year. Like, do you actually believe that's
more income?
happen?
That's more income for everyone. That's new jobs being created.
Is it though? Is it though? And what jobs are we talking about? Like, you're either taking care of somebody, you're making something, transporting something, right? So you got healthcare, so you're either helping people, so services, transportation, you're taking stuff somewhere, manufacturing, you're building something, sales could be rough. People aren't doing much face-to-face sales anymore. Everybody's buying their stuff online. Very few salespeople. Those jobs are you're probably screwed.
An inevitability. We've seen this in every revolution. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, 60% of Americans worked in agriculture. And when the tractor came around and factories came around, those folks got to get out of doing manual labor in the fields where they were.
Those folks got to get out of manual labor. Woo, hold on.
We've seen this in every revolution. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, 60% of Americans worked in agriculture. And when the tractor came around and factories came around, those folks got to get out of doing manual labor in the fields where they were literally, tilling the fields by hand. And they got to go work in a factory where they didn't have to do manual labor to move things. Yeah, they did things in the factory.
I don't think this person knows how manufacturing and farming work, but I digress.
With their hands. But it wasn't about grunt work in the field all day in the sun. And it became a better standard of living. It became new jobs. And today
it became a 5-day work week. It went from a 7-day,
and it's from
7-day work week to 5.
100 hours.
Okay. So explain to me. Y'all just think about this for a second. So he said all of these people that used to be in the fields, they went into the factories, and they worked in the factories, and they had a better life. And they made more money because they were able to, instead of being out in the fields, they were in the factories doing it. And instead of a 7-day work week, they had a 5-day work week. And that also made their life better. So then what he's trying to say, or he's alluding to, is that a similar situation is going to happen from this time. That we're going to go from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week, and we're going to make just as much money, and we're going to be able to spend some time and everything's going to be happy-go-lucky. Interesting.
Hours a week to 45, 50 hours a week. And now I think the next phase is we're going to end up in less than 30 hours a week with people making more money and having more abundance for every dollar that they earn with respect to what they can purchase and the lives they can live. That means more time with.
That's an absolute fact, no news. But this fool's on some.
Your family, more time with your friends, more time to explore interesting opportunities. So, we've been through this conversation a number of times. I know.
I think he's making this argument in bad faith. All these tech guys literally spend their entire careers trying to figure out how to keep you right here. That's it. You're just making a bad faith. You're making a bad faith argument. Like, the purpose of him and his buddies, all of them, and I like them, but all of them, the number one focus of their jobs has been trying to keep us attached to these phones. And he's trying to make this excuse like, oh, your life is going to be better, and you're going to have friends, and you're going to have a 3-day work week and whatever. Disingenuous at best. But whatever. Let's go. Almost there.
No, I'm not.
No, it's
being
important
too
to bring it up,
prescriptive,
I
but
think, and really unpack it because
Yeah,
the fear is peaking now, Sachs. People are using this moment in time to scare people that, hey, the jobs are going to
Oh, because y'all keep lying. We can't believe you. If you're clearly lying, it's like, what are you hiding? You're hiding something. I can tell you're hiding something because you're not telling me the truth. My radar is going off. I hear like you're trying to make excuses for what you're about to do later on that I don't know about. That's what I'm getting right now.
go away and they won't come back. But what we're seeing on the ground, Sachs, is I'm seeing many more startups getting created and able to accomplish more tasks and hit a higher revenue per employee than they did in the last 2 cycles. So it used to be, you try to get to $250,000 in revenue per employee, then 500. Now we're regularly seeing startups hit $1 million in revenue per employee, something that was rarefied air previously, which then speaks to your point, Freeberg, that there'll be more abundance.
What he's describing is a unicorn. Those are apps and some of these tech companies and apps that do 20x, 30x, 40x, 50x, which would be unheard of in the industrial revolution days when all you were expected to make was 10 or 15% profit instead of 20x, 30x, 40x, 50x is what he's saying. But those are unicorns, and they're called unicorns for a reason because they don't happen that often. So what happens is a whole bunch of people have these AI startups. In fact, one was in the news just a second ago. Somebody ran off with like $15 million or $150 million or something like that. Because you slap AI on any new company and then all of a sudden you can find some funding and these people take the money and they run. That's literally what's happening right now. What he's describing is happening as we speak.
Abundance. There'll be more capital generated, more capital
deployed.
Because more capital deployed for more opportunities, but you're going to need to be more resilient, I think. Yeah.
I think it's
but you're going to need to be more resilient. Well, if there's so much more of everything, why do you need to be resilient? Why do you need to be more? Why do you need more resilient? Yeah, facts. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? I mean, this is just a really disingenuous conversation, and this is why we don't believe him. I see IBM is in a hiring freeze. When people leave jobs, they're going to replace them with it. Absolutely, without a doubt. Let's continue.
Actually very hard to completely eliminate a human job. The ones that you cited, and Jake, you keep citing the same ones because I actually don't think there's that many that fit in this category. The drivers and maybe level 1 customer support, because those jobs are so monolithic. But when you think about even like what a salesperson does, right? It's like, yes, they spend a lot of time with prospects, but they also spend time negotiating contracts, and they spend time doing post-sale implementation and follow-up, and they spend time learning the product and giving feedback. I mean, it's a multifaceted job, and you can use AI to automate pieces of it, but to eliminate the whole job is actually very hard. And so I just think this idea that, boom, 20% of the workforce is going to be unemployed in 2 years, I just don't think that it's going to work that way. But look, if there is widespread job disruption, then obviously the government's going to have to react, and we're going to be in a very different societal order. But my point is, you want the government to start reacting now before this actually happens?
We don't need to be precogs and predict it. Yeah.
It's a total power grab. It's a total power grab to give the government and these organizations more power before the risk is even manifested. And let me say this as well, with respect to all these regulations.
Here's a question, and this is for anybody that might catch this again on a replay. This is interesting. Do you wait until it breaks, or do you preemptively prepare so that it doesn't break? That is the question. All right. Well, let's do this. 49. Let's just move right along until the conclusion of this thing, and then we can move on to the smut, because that's what everybody really wants to talk about, the smut. Let's go. Let's close this out.
Benefits to everyone in a way that perhaps should be calming down the conflict and the tension.
You've got to admit that there is a potential dual use here. There's no question that the armies of the future are going to be drones and robots, and they're going to be AI powered.
Yeah.
And as long as that's the case, these countries are going to compete vigorously to have the best AI, and they're going to want.
So he's trying not to talk about the weaponization of these things and the weaponization of AI, but that's a reality, because that's where the international stuff gets sticky.
Their leaders or national champions or startups and so forth to win the race.
What's the worst case, Sachs, if China wins the AI race? What is the worst case scenario?
Ask what it means first. Ask Sachs what it means.
That's literally what I'm asking. Like, what would that scenario be? Would they invade America and they die?
No, you said they keep limiting job growth. Folks will have to live in compounds. Every movie that we've ever seen about the future. That's what happens, right? Like, what's the Elysium, where it was like they got like you have to get off the planet, and then there's Out of Time, where you got to go through a bunch of different like gated like areas, and you have to like be able to have enough time to get to where the major city is. What's the one with the girl and the Mockingjay or whatever? The you know what I'm talking about. You know, they got the city where all the people are all like that. That's exactly what has to happen. Rich people will have to tuck themselves away because broke people are not knowing that you have more. They're going to want to take what you have. It always ends this way. It always ends this way. I mean, I imagine it seems like it. I mean, I don't see it happening any other way. What group of people are going to allow a small percentage to keep and have and live in luxury while they struggle? That shit don't last. That don't last. That don't last. Broke people will burn that mess down before and make you start all over again before they allow that to happen. It's only a matter of time.
Dominate us forever.
But what does it mean to
Chinese
lead?
citizens? Yeah. What does it mean to win? Yeah.
To me, it would mean that they achieve a decisive advantage in AI such that we can't leapfrog them back. And an example of this might be something like 5G, where Huawei somehow leapfrogged us, got to 5G first and disseminated it through the world. They weren't concerned about.
Now, what he won't say is that Huawei also built a back door into all these chips so that China can spy on you whenever they want. Hunger Games. Thank you, No News. I knew. I forgot. But yep. Let's see. Judge Dreds. That's exactly what I was thinking, bro. That's always how it happens. Because what happened to that dude from the health insurance company just a couple months ago? Right? Millionaire. At his millionaire meeting with all his millionaire executives, got his head popped off. How much of that you think is going to happen before people realize that they're going to have to walk around with armed security forever? We're already there. What? Zuckerberg's got allegedly he's got this a bunker in Hawaii. Oprah's got a bunker in Hawaii. Bunkers in Colorado, bunkers in Utah, bunkers in Texas, bunkers in Alaska. It's crazy.
Diffusion. They were interested in promulgating their technology throughout the world.
If the Chinese win AI, they will sell more products and services around the globe than the US.
This is where we have to change our.
No, they'll be spying on you more than everybody else. They'll be spying on you. China will be spying first. Yes. Yes, if they beat you with AI, China is going to be spying first, which is exactly what they did with the chips. They got us to the 5G and they cheat and they steal and they spy. That's what's going to happen. That's why they're racing. It's cold that they don't even say that, but that's what it's going to be. You know, AI is going to have us like iRobot, man, I know. And everybody's going to be sleepwalking right on into that situation, pretending like fat, meaty, and greasy. I think it's a terrible idea. And while everybody's zigging, I think I'm going to zag. Let's let him finish this.
Our mindset towards diffusion. I would define winning as the whole world consolidates around the American tech stack. They use American hardware in data centers that, again, are fundamentally powered by American technology.
So we spy. We win so that we can spy, not so that they can spy. We win so that we can spy and not them. That's what he's trying to say.
And just look at market share. Okay. If we have like 80 to 90% market share, that's winning. If they have 8% market share, then we're in big trouble. So it's very simple.
Yes, that means they need to stay broken in the fields, making stuff, making our cheap goods. And then we can sit inside with air conditioning and we can be on our phones doing our thing. And then we can make all the money. And then we make sure that we can spy on our own people, spy on them, and then keep them working. That's what we're trying to do. Yes.
But if the market grows up by 10x, it doesn't matter because the world will have, every individual in every country will now have more. They will have a more prosperous life. And as a result, it's not necessarily the framing about if we don't get there.
They'll have a more prosperous life. That's the exact same excuse they always use about slavery. It's like, you guys like learned skills and stuff, right? You know, we clothed you, we fed you, right? It's better, right? Right? I mean, it's better. Like, you don't have to go have your own house and your own yard and your own family and stuff. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I got that. All you got to do is go pick that cotton. You're better off, right? Right? Like your standard of living is better, right? Like, you're not living off out in the woods in a shack. You can live right here on the property in a shack. That's better, right? Right? Like, you know, you don't have to go out there and catch those raccoons. You can have the chitlins that I have right here. You can eat the bullshit that I give you right here, because that's better, right? That's better. Yeah, it's better.
First, we are necessarily going to lose. I get that there's an edge case of conflict or what have you, but I do think that there's a net benefit where the whole world suddenly is in this more prosperous state. And
this is a classic example of a dual use technology where there are both economic benefits and there are military benefits.
Yes.
GPS would come to mind in this example, right? Like, my summary point is just that it's
GPS, so you can target those targets on the ground from space. Dual use, right? So you don't have to use maps.com anymore. You can use the GPS on your phone and get to where you need to go. And we can put those Tomahawk missiles right in the front door of our enemies. See? Dual use. Dual use.
It's not all about a losing game with respect to this quote race with other nation states. But at the end of the day, yes, there is risk. But I do think that if the pace of improvement stays on track like it is right now, holy shit, I think we're in a pretty good place. That's just my point.
Okay, some positivity. Okay.
Look, I hope that the AI race stays entirely positive and it's a healthy competition between nations, and the competition spurs them on to develop more prosperity for their citizens. But as we talked about at the AI summit, there's two ways of looking at the world. There's kind of the economist way that Jeffrey Sachs was talking about, and then there's the balance of power way, or realist way, which Mearsheimer was talking about. And when economic prosperity and survival or balance of power come into conflict, it's the realist view of the world that it's the balance of power that gets privileged. And I just think that's the way that governments.
Whoa. You hear what he just said? Oh my God, you hear what he just said? Oh, sometimes they say the quiet part out loud. Say the part quiet out loud. Listen.
Balance of power way, or realist way, which Mearsheimer,
the realist way,
was talking about. And when economic prosperity and survival or balance.
Economic prosperity and survival. Economic prosperity and survival. Survival is like, right? You're surviving. Like, that's the end. Like, that's like the most important thing. Your survival, right? Okay.
Balance of power come into conflict.
And balance of power come into conflict. So your survival, balance of power. Wow.
It's the realist view of the world that it's the balance of power that gets privileged.
It's the balance of power that gets privileged. Huh. That is a profound statement there, Mr. Sachs. Say it again.
Balance of power come into conflict. It's the realist view of the world that it's the balance of power that gets privileged.
It's the balance of power that gets privileged. That was a profound thing for him to say. Let him say it one more time.
Jeffrey Sachs was talking about. And then there's the balance of power way, or realist way, which Mearsheimer was talking about.
Realist.
And when economic prosperity and survival or balance of power come into conflict.
And balance of power come into conflict.
It's the realist view of the world that it's the balance of power that gets privileged. And
that's crazy.
And I just think that's the way that governments operate, is that prosperity is incredibly important. We want economic success, but power is ultimately privileged over that. And this is why we're going to compete vigorously in high tech. That's why there is going to be an AI race.
Yeah. Okay, perfect segue.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. If you had any question as to what it really is all about, he summed it up. He summed it up right there at the end. At the end of the day, prosperity don't mean nothing. It's all about power. It's power. Prosperity be damned. It's about power. Because if you have the power, then you can call the shots. That's crazy. Anyways, man. So check this out. Diddy. I don't really like this whole this thing that they're doing to him. I'm not really into it. Not really into it, but and I heard some really crazy things about this guy. This guy right here. This guy is this guy's he calls himself the Punisher. And he is a male stripper slash nookie nookie worker. So he gets paid to do the thing. You know what I'm saying? And he sat down with he had an interview with Cameron. And you know, he actually made, as crazy as this might sound, this is gonna sound crazy. As crazy as this might sound, what he actually did with Diddy, or didn't really do anything with Diddy, but what he did with him and Diddy and Cassie is weird and it's gross, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. To me, I mean, he actually never touched Diddy. Diddy never touched him. Which again, I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying that, you know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't butt buddies is what I'm saying. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I don't know. You judge. Maybe you could tell. You guys let me know whether let's listen to this guy and you guys tell me whether you think he's being truthful or not. Let's get to this part right here. Bam.
Address and the time to show up. And I'm thinking I'm showing up to do a party, just a regular little striptease.
So he said Cassie called him and set up the whole thing. They used the fake name. So he didn't know that who it was that he was going to be, you know, meeting up with or seeing. So he just thinks that he's going to do a strip tease for a couple. Now let's forget about how weird that all sounds and so on, and just let that go.
He's for a birthday girl.
But like, that's a great answer. How do they find you? Like, is it ads, internet? Like, how do they even track somebody like you down?
Oh yeah, yo, all my marketing and stuff for my business is like SEO, so Google searches. So if you go online in the New York City area and you put in male strippers for hire or whatever, my website's gonna come up. So they just clicked on the website and called the number, and I just happened to pick up the phone. It wasn't. I don't think they were looking for me specifically.
Right.
I just picked up the phone.
Got you. Where did these? Well, let's say the first time. Where did this?
I mean, are you happy about your situation, or are you not happy? Right? Are you mad that you picked up the phone that day, or would you like, I would have liked to make the money? I don't know.
Where do these events usually happen at? Puff's house, Cassie's house, hotel. Like, where did these events happen at?
I was all super high-end hotels.
Gotcha.
So I remember it was the Trump Tower, Essex House, the London Hotel, the Gramercy Hotel. It was another hotel, Central Park West. I don't know. I don't remember the name, but they were all along the lines of super high-end, super suites. One of the suites, man, in the London Hotel, it was so crazy when I got out of it. I Googled it, and the joint was like $30K a night, yo.
Wow.
I never seen nothing like this in my life, man. The hotel room looked like, you know that scene in the Titanic when they walk in that ballroom and the stairway well comes down?
Right.
Like, the hotel room was crazy, man.
How often did they call you or book you?
Like I said in my I can't remember the exact amount of time. So I estimated between 8 and 12 times, but it would be like every few months, but it would be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, I would come Friday night, then they say come back Saturday night, then come back Sunday. And then I might not be called for 3-4 months, and then they'll just pop up. So at the time, I thought they lived out of town.
So, I mean, he's been messing around with these people for years.
You know, she would call me from a Cali number. So I assumed they were out of state, and she basically said, yo, can I hit you when we're in town? Right. But it would be multiple nights in a row, but months in between.
Right. And if some of these questions that I asked you may seem repeated because you've been asked these same.
Redundant, but yes. Let's get to this part right here, though. Let's move on to this part.
It was 1,200 or 2,000. No, we just kept doing what we was doing.
Right. So the nigga basically, pardon me, I'm gathering information as we talk. Y'all in the bed, he's circling the room, takes us.
So he never actually touched Diddy. And Diddy generally wore a mask for most of the times at the beginning, like one of them like things where you can't even see his face, like the women in Islam wear. And then eventually he was just wearing a hat, but he would be naked. And while him and this guy and Cassie were doing their thing, he would be across the room beating his meat until this one time that he's speaking about.
A second, and just throw it on the bed.
Just throw it on the bed.
Wow. It's crazy. Sorry about that. I was just thinking, what was the most money you made doing this with them?
Every single time I came, it was 1,200 or 2,000.
Double entendre.
But like I said, sometimes I could come 3 days in a row.
Right.
Pause.
So,
so it would be 1,200, 2,000, 1,200 for that. You know what I'm saying?
For that session.
3 days. Yeah, exactly.
Got you. And it would last 2-3 days?
Yeah, 2-3 days, but not straight. Like a few hours, I'll go home, you'll come back again. A few hours, I'll go home, come back again. You know?
I think it's on time. I think it's on clockwork. That's a wild nigga, man. I also seen that you say Cassie said she felt comfortable with you. Did you take that as she liked you?
That's a good question, Cam. That's a really good question, Cam. And I have to be real. Shout out. Who the hell am I? I'm just a regular guy, just a regular nobody. But I tell you what, man, Cameron and Mace are becoming some of my favorite media people. They ask the right questions. They got the swag. They got they got the energy. They can tighten it up when they need to. Obviously, he's Cameron, but he's still asking better questions than half these attorneys.
Not really. I knew it was clear, man. This was something we were setting up for her dude, right? At the time, I'm thinking her husband, because she said this to me the very first encounter, right? So I didn't think it was a personable, she's into me. But obviously, if this is something that has to be done based on their sexual fetish, well, she's going to do it with somebody that, all right, I'm comfortable with this dude, you know?
Right.
So I always took it as, however the vibe was, however things went, it worked for her. So that's why she said, I want to call you back, you know?
Got you. Did Puff ever appear jealous while you guys were having intercourse or participating with each other?
Another very good question. Another great question. Man, why is it that Cameron is asking better questions than the attorneys and all these other interviews that this guy did? And Cameron's asking better questions than everybody else, hands down. I'm not even joking. Shout out to Cameron, man. Shoot. Shout out to you, bro.
Not at all, man. Not at all. It was like good to go. Like I told you, the focus was making sure he got the right visuals, the lighting was right, put more baby oil on. Like he was into it from an enjoyment standpoint.
So, but you saying he basically never was jealous. Did Cassie ever reach out to you without Puff?
Once again, another great question. Shout out to Cameron.
Nah, it was strictly business. And honestly, man, I wasn't even trying to play that, get caught up in some type of fantasy. I know one of the other dudes got caught up in some fantasy of they could be together. I knew what it was, man. Like, right. She with a dude in $30,000 a night suites. Like I move. I can pull it off with chicks, but that's a tough act to follow. You know what I'm saying? So I saw it.
Oh, that's so real though. It's like, man, I can't afford this, bro. I can't afford this chick. I don't know. Like, it's cool that I can do it, make some money, but like taking it for real, like there's no way.
There's an opportunity, man, and I was just trying to come through to, come up whatever way I could with that easy money, how I saw it.
Yeah, I ain't knocking money.
Easy money. I don't know, man. That seems a bit crazy.
Nigga, how was that pussy though?
Cam just had to ask. He just had to ask.
I mean, bro, even if it was fire.
Bro,
hey, you know what? Okay. This is the most real answer. And the reason why I think it's the most real answer, it's crazy. The reason why I think this is the most real answer is because if I were to put myself in this situation, I think that I would probably, and again, we're stretching now, right? We're just trying to, just for the sake of argument, if I were to put myself in that situation, I would probably feel what he's about to say right now. Hold on.
Political shit. We was Harlem time, my nigga. You 39th Street or 40th was the pussy. How was that pussy, my nigga?
Bro, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I couldn't get there, bro.
Okay.
Like I got a dude pacing back and forth, beating his joint. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My peripherals, my spider senses is wilding. You know what I'm saying? And especially when I found out it was Puff. When I found out it was Puff, it got all the way worse because if you grew up in Harlem, if you grew up in that era, I can't validate it, but everybody knows there's rumors, right? There's rumors that he could be, you know, interested in dudes. So the whole time I'm semi-paranoid. Like I wrote in my book, bro, for real, I got a hearing problem.
Right.
And sometimes when he would give her directions, I would hear like something completely different. Like he'll say, yo, I like the position you in. And I'm like, yo, did he just say I wish I could penetrate him? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm hearing like, yo, hold on, wait, what did you just say? Like,
so basically you never could get comfortable because, so let's just be clear and get the elephant out the room for the audience. You're not gay, you're saying?
Absolutely not.
Right. So therefore you're saying that already, just to put everything into perspective, that you're there for this chicken to get this money. You don't know it's Puff this whole time. So you're already thinking like, okay, this nigga's being weird, whoever it is. And I got to keep an eye out for him because we don't know what type, in case he want to, if he get mad, if he want to join, I'm not with none of that. I'm here to bone your bitch like you paid me to do and stay the fuck out of it. But what you're saying is the paranoia intensified once you found out it was Puff and you like, oh, hold on, now this shit then got to a 10 because not only am I fucking this nigga girl, but it's Puff. So now you say you hearing shit that you wasn't hearing, and now you can't really enjoy the pussy like you want to enjoy it. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Like I'm not intimately connected, yo. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I don't think I got a real erection the entire time.
Right.
Like I was loading up on any pill, anything that I could take just to get there because I could not connect.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? It was too.
I mean, it's got to be weird, right? Come on, man. Like, you know, like you got a guy like 10 feet away from you pacing back and forth, beating his meat. Right? Like, I mean, that couldn't be easy. I'm just trying to, I'm just for the sake of argument, just putting myself in that situation. I was like, I can't imagine that something like that would be, I probably wouldn't be able to keep it together myself either. Just saying.
Paranoid, it was official paranoid, bro. Like, because I'm not used to being in that situation. And then it's like homie got on the veil and butt naked, and then
got on a veil, butt naked.
Not used to being in that situation, and then it's like homie got on the veil and butt naked, and then like I said, I find out it's Puff, and then it's the rumors. So real talk, I'm like, yo, I don't want this to go left.
Right.
So,
well, listen, man, we're gonna get you some pink horsepower because it don't matter what the situation is. That joint work. We're gonna, you from the block, we'll send you a case up there. Nah, you already, nigga, that ain't about nothing. Did you go raw ever?
Yo, bro, yeah, for real, bro. That same day when he threw the stack of hundreds,
right?
Like we were on the bed and you know, I started out, you know, I'm eating a box, right? And after, you would tell it was like some excitement, some connection. So when I pop up, she's scooting towards me for the penetration, and she kind of looked at him, and he was like, "Yo, go ahead, have a good time." And I was wild reckless. I just it was what it was.
So it's only one time you went raw. You repeatedly went raw.
That was, let's say that was the 4th time, and then it was every time to the last time.
Got you. Gotta go raw sometime. You gotta go raw, and Cassie be like that, my nigga.
Yo, man, like, how do you wife a chick after that? You know what I mean? Like, what happens when you've already wifed her and you find out all this stuff and it's just like on the internet? Like, that's crazy. Damn, trying to get while watching the back door. Gotta say, yeah, man. Yeah, that's crazy. Look, you got people be weird out here People be weird out here, man. And if you don't set clear boundaries, no telling where the hell you're going to end up and what you're going to end up doing. Never, ever know. Never know. Never know. One day we'll do story time and talk about a couple of times I got in a situation where I look around. I'm like, hey, man, where's everybody else? Look around. I'm like, oh, hell no. This is not what I thought it was, is it? Oh, I'm going to slowly back out of here before I get my booty, my my booty tuck. Shout out to Noise. What he says, he says, I know the husband's soul is hurt, bro. How do you how do you even look at her anymore? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like, is it right? Do you oh, babe, it's okay. Huh? Right? Like, so this guy's talking about how he was like eating the box and then he got to hit it raw. Like, I mean, I know the girl that I eventually hope to marry or whatever is probably not going to be a virgin, but I don't need to know all the dudes that she hooked up with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know she's done it, but I don't need to know who they are and where they are, and it doesn't need to be put all over the internet. But I digress. Let's let him rock.
Some of my co-hosts, they got a couple questions for you, but I got one more question before they ask you a couple questions. We hear about 50's baby mom, Daphne, being involved in some of these things. Did you ever fuck Daphne, 50 Cent's baby mother?
Nah, every time I was called or involved in any way, it was only Cassie specifically.
So that was some information that I thought is important. So this guy in particular, it was only him and Cassie, and then Diddy was in the corner. And they always kind of made it seem like it was always like these big old, it was like basic like orgies. And again, I'm not shooting Diddy any bail. All I'm simply saying is that it's not nearly as weird and crazy as people were trying to make it seem. I mean, it is weird and crazy, but and this guy could be lying. This guy could be lying. He could be lying. Him and Diddy could have been going bit back. He even says that him and Diddy actually never spoke. They never spoke. He only spoke to Cassie. He never spoke to Diddy. And at least this is what he testified to. And they didn't call him a liar up there on the stand. So I would imagine at least these basic facts are close to the truth. I digress.
All right, cool, man. Hey, yo, my man Larry, Sheree, you got a question for him? We get ready to wrap this up. Sheree, you've been great, man, and thank you for participating. A couple more questions before we get you out of here. And also, we want to talk about your book before you go as well.
I appreciate that.
Yo, what's good, fam? So my question is, you said on the first night, that she asked you if you wanted to continue, and you said no. So I'm asking is, she wanted to continue. Was Puff there? So basically, I'm saying, did she want to do it without Puff?
So when she came back in the room and asked me, her actual words was, "Do you want to finish?" Right. So I found out later, finish meant me busting the nut.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So she offered, but like I said, I just turned it down. And if I'm keeping it 100, part of the reason why I turned it down is because I was struggling to get my joint up and hold an erection anyway, because homie got on the veil. I don't know who it is. He's pacing back and forth. So
Oh, God damn. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. I mean, if you need to pay that rent, though, you know what I'm saying?
I couldn't get in that zone anyway. So I turned it down. You know, obviously, I'm trying to be professional or whatever, but at the same time, I don't think I could have finished if I wanted to.
But he wasn't in the room with you anymore.
He wasn't, but what I would assume what would have happened was she would have said, "Do I want to?" And if I would have started, he would have walked back in.
All right, then I got two more. So the other one was, when he threw a stack of money on you, were you able to keep that money? Was that the most money that he threw on you? Was that like, you said it was a stack of hundreds? Like how like you said earlier, 1,200 to 2,000. What?
Having another man throw money on a bed while you're having sex with his chick is crazy work. Crazy work.
Was it more than that, or was that the 1,200 to 2,000? Because when I think of a stack, I think of like 5,000, 10,000.
Nah, it wasn't a stack. It was, I believe it was 2,000. And honestly, I thought that was a day I was going to really make a lot of bread because the 2,000 got thrown on the bed, was put to the side. As soon as we finished, it was handed to me. So I was hoping then she was going to come because she would come at the end of the night and pay me again, and that'd be an additional money. But that
Damn, man, Diddy and Cassie straight had some. They were ordering up some hookers and shit. That's crazy. That's crazy.
2,000 ended up just being the money I got. So it wasn't like a super payday of a session. So I just pretty much got my money in advance, you know.
I got you. My last question is, when all this kind of came about, you know, there's this history now of Puff being really violent. Were you scared to testify? Are you scared of retribution? Are you like was that an issue for you to go testify?
Yeah, I mean, it's something you have to consider, right? But look,
fair use. What
I understand is the details of what went on. Obviously, they're going to be embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? In terms of what happened in those encounters, and you know, I got to testify to what happened. But the truth of the matter is, I don't feel like I was biased or let's say threw him under the bus, right? You know, none of my testimony is saying she was abused. Like, you know, there was aggression, there was, it was not consented. You know what I'm saying? She was under the influence of the drugs, because that's just not true, right? Like, everything seemed in the right mind. Everybody seemed cool. All my communications and everything with her was on point. So honestly, I thought me testifying my actual facts actually probably benefited the defense. To this day, I'm still not exactly sure why the prosecution wanted me to testify. So I felt like as long as I go up there and say exactly what happened, again, there's going to be an embarrassing element to it. But I don't think I don't think my testimony seemed biased, as if I was trying to do anything other than telling the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not like framing things, you know what I'm saying, to go out of my way to put them in a bad light or put anybody in a light other than what the facts were.
I'd have to agree with that. I'd have to agree with that. And so, look, I didn't spend a whole bunch of time on that whole, I'm a little bit offended by the whole Diddy situation in the first place. And I really don't like the fact that so much of our time has been spent trying to make sense of that. I think it's kind of some trash. But real quick before we get out of here, there is one clip that I wanted to show because all of our leaders, and I'm using air quotes, and I'm talking about all the people that are elected officials. Situations like this, they're often nowhere to be found. And stories like this, whether people want to admit it or not, typically one person can't make something like this happen, meaning just the cops, right? So if just the cops either plant evidence, or if the cops lose evidence, or they do something else, there's still the DA, the judge, and a whole bunch of other things that pop in, and a whole lot of other questions that get asked to be able to railroad somebody like this. They need to be working with the DA. They need to be working with the judge and the courts, and they collectively decide that they want to screw somebody. But no one ever seems to be held responsible for stuff like this. Let's watch this clip real quick.
Not guilty of.
A 41-year-old man was wrongly imprisoned for 27 years and burst into tears after his release.
I'm an innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man, Your Honor.
John Bunn was framed by former Detective Louis Scarcella and accused of murdering a prison guard in Brooklyn. He was sentenced to 27 years in prison after only one day of trial when he was 14 years old. Bunn
14 years old, y'all. 14 years old.
Recalled, the police officer initially described the suspect as a light-skinned black man in his 20s, but Bunn had
light-skinned black man in his 20s, and this was a dark-skinned 14-year-old.
dark skin, and his age didn't match. Bun was then taken back to the police station and locked in a small locked room with his hands cuffed to a pillar. Bun was forced to choose a number. Louis said to him, "Today is your lucky day. You've been chosen and you won't go home anymore." Despite the lack of any substantive evidence, he was still convicted by the jury. During his imprisonment, Bun made several attempts to appeal, but all were rejected. Finally, his verdict was overturned at last. After 27 years of struggle, 41-year-old Bun finally cleared his name.
I want to say thank you, Your Honor.
27 years.
It's been 27 years. I've been fighting for my life.
What kind of compensation do you think Bun should receive? Share your thoughts in the comment section.
This is trash. This is trash. Stuff like this is trash. The idea that they can still get this stuff off is crazy. It's unbelievable. Anyways, check it out. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. What is happening here? Is that what I...
Hey! Hey! You leave that goddamn monkey Hey! Hey! You leave that goddamn monkey
Is that Myron? Myron from Fresh and Fit. Is that Myron? That's Myron's uncle. Oh, man. See, they try to talk shit about Americans, man. I don't know. They talk smack about Americans, but I don't know. I think it's that's wild. That's crazy. Anyways, salute to everybody in the chat, man. Thank you guys so much for coming through, hanging out with me. Unfortunately, like I said, Broken Blaze internet was down, couldn't make it, so salute to him. But we will absolutely positively catch you guys on the next one. We're going to be up in here tomorrow at the same bat time, same bat channel. Most likely, we're going to stick to that 5 o'clock spot because that allows me to work a little bit more in the evening. So once again, salute to all you guys. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. It has been a blast, and we will catch you guys on the next one. We out. Peace.
I'm a